Can we make a difference? Can we make a profit? If we can settle both of those things, then the property it goes through our underwriting process. If we can't settle those two things, then it's not going to go through the underwriting process.
Hey guys, it's Whitney. I wanted to take some time to introduce you to my good friends over at PassiveInvesting.com. They're a national private equity real estate firm based out of the Carolinas. They focus on acquiring institutional quality apartments and self-storage facilities. They do this with private accredited investor funds. They have a portfolio of over $700 million in assets and control over $250 million in equity from their investors. PassiveInvesting.com makes it easy for you to start investing in real estate without all the hassles. They even have an average 62% repeat investor rate in each offering they put together. They even have a real estate debt fund that offers hard money loans to local fix and flippers across the U.S., which currently has a 0% default rate. To help you learn more, they've put together a free passive investor guide that outlines the 7 red flags for passive apartment and self-storage investing. Visit PassiveInvesting.com/red flags to download the PDF now. That's PassiveInvesting.com/red flags. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Sam Sales. He's a syndicator, operator. His mission is to change lives, build communities, and grow wealth. He traveled the globe as an international health specialist while serving the Air Force and was motivated by seeing poverty and the lack of safe housing to start his company, Wild Mountain Capital. He's an experienced entrepreneur who scaled quickly from mobile home parks to apartment complexes and quickly reached $100 million in assets under management in 3 years. I love this conversation with Sam. I enjoyed getting to know him. He and I actually met at a conference I was speaking at quite a few months back. But he worked in Afghanistan. He was a 50 cal gunner. He did rehabs. He talked about a $64 million rehab on a hospital that he did in another country. Right. And how that led him to real estate, how that led to impact investing. But he's also going to go into some things that where he's transitioned, say, from working with the retail investor, right? The investors that we work with every day, to going to institutional money, institutional equity, right? And what that process looks like. How do you do that? What should you expect? It's eye-opening, to say the least. We have not done that personally, but he has, and it's great to hear some things he's learned, how it's helped him improve, pros and cons. Maybe you're thinking about that as well. I think that's going to be very helpful for you. You know, if you're contemplating going that route, right? Instead of just raising money yourself, but it's a way to move fast, right? Be able to do bigger deals and faster when you can bring in partners who can write checks at, 10 million, 100 million, at a time. It definitely changes things for you in the deals you can buy. But we also get into building teams and finding people that are smarter than you so you can scale faster, but smarter as well. So just a great conversation with Sam. I know you're going to enjoy it and be encouraged and learn a lot. Sam, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to meet again. I know you mentioned we met at a conference a while back, and I've enjoyed even getting to know you a little better just through conversation and your background. I think we have some similarities in a few different ways, and so that's exciting. But I love knowing just how your career shaped, moving into real estate, and then also what you call impact investing. And I want the listeners to have a better understanding of what that means a little bit and how you are applying that in your business. But then getting into some thoughts around investors and institutional money and equity and how you have transitioned. And I think there's going to be listeners who are wondering about that same thing for their own business as well. But get us started, Sam, with a little bit about yourself, your background in the service. Thank you again for your service. But let's dive in.
Yeah, thank you, Whitney. Thank you for having me on the show, and I look forward to talking with you and with your listeners. And been a long time listener myself, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. So a little bit about myself. A long time ago, spent some time with David Robinson, who's also co-host. But after that time, got into construction and then eventually joined the Air Force as a firefighter. And that's when we started flipping homes in the early 2000s, buying homes in a couple of different states simultaneously. And the guy that I first started flipping homes with, he thought studs went sideways. That's and, and I just thought, oh my gosh, man, if you can do this, anyone can do this. And so, I was fortunately to start teaching him about, things like 16 on center, studs go up and down, not sideways. Seriously, he was walling a wall sideways. I don't, like really, man. So did that for a while and then finished my bachelor's degree in business strategy. Went to go work for a consulting firm. Did not really like that. Decided to go back in the Air Force and became a healthcare administrator. Very soon I realized I did not like the admin side. I wanted to do operational stuff and was able to go and, spend some time in Afghanistan. Loved it, working with the Afghans all over the north, borders and other places. Just really enjoyed that time. Got to be a 50 cal gunner and some other cool stuff that can share in different circles. But, and then after that, just really, the last 10 years of my career focused on global health and traveled around all over the place, building clinics and 200 bed facilities and, project officer for a 500 bed, hospital, largest wartime hospital in the world, and doing a $64 million rehab on that was super interesting. But, been in, places where we're literally negotiating dirt and gravel and movement and everything else from grades and engineering to where latrines are going to be put and bathroom systems in West Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, or working with foreign militaries to help them move patients off battlefields with whatever little helicopter or airplane they have. Just really grew a love and passion for health security and, for housing security, seeing people living in mud huts and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I grew up poor. We took baths in horse troughs, and we thought as kids, we thought it was super fun. Didn't have running water or electricity for a while. Thought that was cool. Now growing up, I'm like, oh, that's not, that was American poor. And then now I've seen, hey, we had it good compared to what the rest of the world has. So towards the end of my career, I just thought, we really need to get into creating clean, healthy places where people can safely reside. And we built Wyman Holdings, and then a bunch of other companies that have come out of that over the years. But started with my dad and my brother, and we've eventually just grown that. And then when I stepped out of the military, the company was already going, full speed ahead. And I think we had 10 properties. By the time I stepped out, we had syndicated probably 5 or 6 times, done JVs on others, and done a few ourselves. So just passionate about this, making a difference through real estate. And we buy a lot of properties that are 10, 20, 40, 50% occupied. And then we get after, churning out 3 units a week with our development teams and, producing change as quickly as we can. And it's been a crazy ride.
I appreciate the detail on some of the things that it sounds like impacted you in a big way, right? Which it should anyone. I mean, working in Afghanistan and actually being a 50 cal gunner, I was also a 50 cal gunner. I don't even know if the listeners, even after 1,300 episodes now, I don't know that any of them know that, but it's an amazing machine. It's just amazing that those things operate after so many years the way they do. But back on real estate. So, you focused on global health for many years. You did the $64 million rehab on a hospital. I mean, you learned a lot, right, in the military that helped push you into real estate in many avenues. And even to the point now, you mentioned like buying properties that are 50% occupied. And I wanted us to talk about that a little bit, but I didn't want to go too quick over the impact investing. It's just neat how, you sharing how you were raised. I mean, that would seem like horrible, right? To most people listening. I think you were taking baths in a feed trough. That doesn't sound very fun to me, but I'm thinking about making my kids do that because they need that experience.
Yeah, it would be like wintertime. My dad would put a fire, put it up on cinder blocks and a fire in the middle. If you got too close to the middle, you'd like burn your feet or your rear end off. So you'd scoot a little bit away and you got like snow falling on your head. You're like, man, I'm cold, but my feet are on fire. It's just,
all about your perspective, isn't it? Right. I mean, I was just having this conversation with my kids at the breakfast table this morning. Right. I mean, it's like, we just have no idea how fortunate we are, but working in Afghanistan and other parts of Africa and whatnot helped you to really see that perspective in a whole new light. Right. And I think visiting some of those places have helped me with that as well, in Iraq and Haiti and different parts of Africa, Ethiopia. But yeah, that helped, that changed me, right, in a big way. And I think it's interesting to hear how that's changed your philosophy maybe towards investing. Right. And helping, not only the lives of your residents, but your investors and seeing that differently than maybe you would have if you just grew up as a businessman or entrepreneur, right? And it didn't have those experiences. Speak to the impact investing a little bit before we move on. Like, what does that mean in your business now? And how do you do that?
When we thought and considered about, how do we change lives, the most amount of lives as possible? And, I'd spent some time working for USAID, their Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance. So that put me going all over the world for disaster response. And that stuff was amazing. But I just felt, I need to come back to America, and where can I do that the most, since I don't have a lot of money? And so the way we thought of is like, well, let's just, let's focus on housing. There's a way for us to do this in a capitalistic paradigm and go after where, responsibility has been abdicated by institutions because they're not going to go touch these properties. It's not an 80s or 90s product. It, isn't, Core Plus or whatever else that they're looking at. And so we went after, Class C properties in Class C areas or Class B areas. And some of these places, it's like, nobody wanted to touch them, or very few did. And we went after it. And, when you walk in and you're like, okay, the rent roll shows 5 people and I see 22 people living here. What's your name? And do you want to pay rent? No. Okay. You got to get out, buddy. I'm sorry. And so we've had, some crazy stories. I mean, just crazy stories, but, the difference that has happened in people's lives, and we hire local managers and we find people who have the cleanest area, and I could go on and on about that, but really focusing on making a difference, increasing occupancy. These people are coming from just nasty units or owners who are trying to squeeze every penny out of them, but they don't do anything to the property. Or, big funds, they do the renovations up front, and in 20 years, they don't spend another penny of CapEx on the property so they can maximize their investors' return. And then they let this property go, and it hasn't been really cared for years. And so we picked up some properties that way and then turn them back around and make sure we invest in them. It's been really good.
No, that's so cool. And I just want the listeners to hear that as well. Just like how you're looking at properties now and thinking that through and helping these people. And so I want to get to, though, you mentioned, buying properties that are 50% occupied. And that, and oftentimes people say, oh, that's just too risky, right? Or I don't want to buy a property like that. It's too much hair on it. Tell us how you see a property like that, though, and are not scared of something like that, right? That, you can see a bigger picture, sounds like, and you're not scared of 50% occupied. Maybe you see a lot of value there. But how does that look, to you? You see a property that's 50% occupied in a manner where, hey, I can go tackle that.
Let's direct it, I guess, through the lens of the capitalistic paradigm, right? So how do we make money on something like that? So I spent a fair amount of time on, milk farms, and they smell terrible, like cow manure, right? And the farmers, every one of them would always say, oh, that's the smell of money, and I'm like, oh, that's terrible. But, that's the smell of money for them, right? And so when
that's a good analogy.
So when we walk into these or these milk farms and these properties, and they just smell terrible, and you see roaches and it smells like pee, and somebody stole doors, off of a unit, you're like, who steals doors, But I guess doors are a commodity sometimes that people want. Anyways, you're just thinking, okay, can I make a difference here, and can we make money doing it? And so that's kind of really how we look at it. And we look at it like, that farmer who's saying, this is where I make money. And so this is where we go. The same. Can we make a difference? Can we make a profit? If we can settle both of those things, then the property it goes through our underwriting process. If we can't settle those two things, then it's not going to go through the underwriting process.
Awesome. I just love it when it's like, okay, I'm not scared of this property. I don't care if it's 20 or 30 or 50% occupied. If it meets these things, if it does these things, then hey, we can make it happen, right? As you don't just run right away from it. You might find a lot of value there, right? As stinky as it may be, that may be a clue for you to think about, hey, maybe I should pursue this further. And so I know we are, with what time we have left too, there's a couple of things I wanted to get to, because you're doing some amazing stuff. And I think you can speak to, that transitioning from, say, the retail investor to institutional money or equity, like what I want us to jump in and because I think there's confusion around that too. Oftentimes, and people are getting started, maybe they've syndicated a deal or two, maybe they haven't, but they still wonder, well, what does that even mean? And how do I, is that something I should consider? Obviously, we all know lots of things that are rumors people talk about, about why or they should or shouldn't do something like that. But I'd love to hear maybe that transition for you. And let's talk about maybe why you would transition and how to do that.
Yeah. So I think as you have learned, there's different systems that you need to put in place if you're going to generate sufficient interest to buy properties that can both cash flow really well, provide a great return, and you can make a difference in them. If not, you're stuck in this world of buying smaller properties and you can only raise $1 million at a time. And so you can never really grow beyond that. So we had purchased about 18 deals and, syndicated probably 10 or 12 times by that point. And we decided, this is a little bit of struggle for us because our superpower is not telling our story. Our superpower is really focusing on operations. And so we started looking at, well, do we partner with a syndicator? Because we're really good at operations. We have a property management team in place. We have a development crew. We can renovate units for about $1 or $2 grand a piece, less expensive than anyone else that we've had come in and give us estimates. We're churning out 3 units at a time. We're really good at operations. And so it's kind of very reflective for us to say, we're not really good at syndicating. We're not delivering as many touches as we need to keep folks and inform the way that they need to, because we're out at the properties trying to make a difference with the residents. The residents pay the bills, and then our investors are going to be fantastically happy when they see all of our properties leave here this summer and they're getting 80, 70, 60, 45% returns on their investment. Then they'll be happy, right? But we've learned that, we have this gap that we need to fill. And so we're working on that gap with some hires. But something we also did is said, well, why don't we move to the institutional world? And so with that in mind, we hired someone out of the institutional world who spent years at Colliers and CBRE and Lloyd Jones and came into the company with a totally different perspective than we have. And so we still focus on making a difference. And then he focuses on institutionalizing our processes and brought in, equity and so forth. And so when you get into the institutional world, the proceeds are much smaller. So if you syndicate, as a syndicator, you make more money on the deal than you do if you go to institutional partners. Institutional partners will write a 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 million check with no problem, but they're going to get inside your fingernails and toenails and know every single thing about you, your business, every single piece of property you purchase, returns. And we have pages and pages of questions from them about a property we're buying, about us. It's just been incredibly remarkable, the amount of information. And, when you're talking to guys who are from Harvard and these other places, and their analysis is incredible, and you think, oh, I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know we could change proceeds from the lenders so that we, boost this and change this. And now at year 3, we've learned all these techniques to really improve profitability to the investors. But, it's been an interesting change. One thing about institutions, though, is they don't want to work with other investors. They just want us in the deal and them. So we had to provide 10 to 20% of the capital ourselves out of our own pockets to work with them. And So what we're decided to do is kind of split a little bit and still do syndications, but only do 2 or 3 a year. And on the other side, we can do 5, 6, 8 with institutions. Less money per deal, but more reliable and more deals and bigger, because it needs to be bigger. You can't buy anything under $20 million and have an institutional partner, because I just don't want that small of a deal. They have $150 million they need to deploy this year. That's not going to be in $2 million chunks.
Right. I just appreciate some of the details there. And even, you said like, they're going to get under your fingernails and toenails. Like they're going to know that much detail about you and the deal. No doubt about it. I think oftentimes people say, well, why would you want to go through that, Sam? Why not just build your own investor relations department and be able to raise more of your own money and not have to put up with that or give control, right? I hear that often. Well, I don't want to get, they want too much control. And well, yes, if they're bringing 80 to 90% of the money, you better believe they're going to have control, right? I mean, and rightfully so, and so, but speak to why you would do that and not just, say push forward on growing your own capital raising ability and that side of the team versus going institutional.
Yeah, I believe it comes down to kind of that mindset. Do you have a scarcity mindset or do you have an abundance mindset? And yeah, absolutely, you're going to give control away. And are you willing to give control away to drive your vision, mission, and values of now I can change more lives. Now we can do more. And yet, yes, each deal is going to be less profitable. Now, if your focus is, I just really want to work 4 hours a week and syndication is going to get me there, you can get there with syndication, right? You could do 2 or 3 deals a year and, get your return and go sit on the beach. And if that's what you want to do, and it's all about you and your family, great. Or all about you, great. But we just have a different mindset. So we built a team, and part of the driver for us too, one is, back to, can we make a difference? Can we make a profit doing it? And now can we make more of a difference and, generate more of a profit? Because yeah, I'm going to make 1% instead of 2% perhaps, but it's going to be on a $40 million deal versus a $5 million deal. Okay. So yeah, 1% is a bigger number perhaps, but 2 is that we really, really wanted to improve ourselves. And so when you got somebody there who is super experienced and they've been doing this for 20 years and they're looking at you and your systems and saying, all right, we're going to partner together. We're going to get married for the next 10 years on this project. This is what I expect. And you're like, oh my goodness. Okay, we got to fix this, and this really quickly. And so it's been, baptism by fire, I guess, but it's been a good transition. And when we go to raise retail equity, we're going to be that much better.
No doubt you and a company-wide, you've improved in a massive way because of working with institutional money, right? I mean, no doubt you've learned so much and improved your processes, systems. But speak to how do you do that? Let's say, the listener says, you know what? Okay. Yeah, I see what Sam's talking about. I should go try to do this. I should try to work with some institutional money. But man, I don't really have that Rolodex of 100, people that have 100 million, they're ready to invest. How do they even get started to build that relationship?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 different ways. One is to hire an introducer who's going to introduce you. You can find them on LinkedIn. If you reach out to me, I can make some recommendations. But folks who would just introduce you to institutions and family offices. There's a lot of myth and lore around family offices. I will tell you, they are super slow to make decisions. And if you have a deal that you're trying to close, forget it. You need 6 months for them to get to the point where, okay, yeah, because they're not in a hurry, right? They're not in a hurry. There's capital institutions who are just focused on deploying capital. They don't want to operate. They just want to oversee the operations and asset manage or share the asset management with you. Really, you need to, like we did, we hired someone who had a lot of pre-existing relationships that we pulled out of, Colliers or CBRE or someplace like that. You need to hire somebody like that, and they're not going to be cheap. But they're going to be totally worth it. And as long as they can work well with your team and bring those folks with them, or at least get the introductions, you can do that. I will say, though, that you better be prepared to know your stuff. inside and out. Like if you're still struggling with understanding how IRR works and time value money and some of those things, then it's probably not time to go talk to institutions. If you're fully firmed up on that stuff, you're fully firmed up on how your operations work, and they're going to throw ratios at you about your labor versus, materials and sources and everything else. You need to be squared away to the nth degree.
And if you're not, you're going to learn a lot.
If you're not, you want to write this down and put it in a book, because you're gonna fail. And honestly, we fell quite a bit at first, and then we got it sorted out. Yeah. And then we're closing this deal right now in Dallas, 180 units with an institutional partner.
Awesome. And congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
You also mentioned before we got started, like this superpower of putting together a team that's smarter than you are. And I would say that's what I've done as well. like that. That's the way we've scaled, right? Really fast, is finding amazing people and bringing them on board, right? I can't be the expert at everything, and neither can you. Or there's so many facets to syndicating a deal, just like you've mentioned, many. Even working with institutional, a partner, like, you can't be the expert in everything they ask, right? Like, it's just not possible. But man, you can build a team of experts, and that's something you claim you've done really well at, and that's helped you to grow or scale. Speak to that a little bit. Like finding those amazing people, growing that team. How did you do that?
In the beginning, I went to my family members, because it's hard to convince people to work for free, right? So family and friends, and trying to get the right people on the bus. Right. So I See Good to Great. If you haven't read that book, that's a great book to read to get a good understanding of, the bus, who gets on the bus and how do they keep them. There's Built to Last. There's these other great books that will teach you and show you some of those basic principles. But if you're the visionary, then you need to stay the visionary and not the worker bee. If you're a worker bee, you need to get a good visionary. If you want to syndicate, but you're not charismatic, then you need to find somebody who's charismatic and wants to be the face of the organization. So we've hired a face of the organization. I'm very passionate about having diversity and culture. And I just look around at all these syndicators like myself and think, man, we are not a very diverse group. So we need to improve and grow our, diversity. I have, very diverse children. I want them to grow up in a world where their diversity is loved and accepted. And so we're doing that as a team, but it gets back to control. You're going to lose control, and it's for the good that you lose control. And so that's what we're all about, is finding those people who can work independently, but who are willing to work together. And we can sit in a room and talk about, hey guys, this went terrible. And it's been great. We've had some of those experiences, and the team's been like, okay, all right, how do we fix this? Or how do we press forward? But we can't fix it. It's done. All right, it's done. What do we learn? And we've never had a meeting in the past 3 years where people have said, you did this, or it's your fault. We've never had that. And it's been fantastic. And it's all about having the right people on the bus and getting after what they want to accomplish that builds towards the greater goal.
Give a tip or two about finding that right quote, right person. It is so important. And we spend a ton of time working on that ourselves. But how have you done that? Give a tip or two, because I know that's what the listeners are wondering too. Well, how do I find that right team member?
Yeah. So it's really hard in COVID because we're not, talking together. And then when you're talking through a mask, it's really kind of difficult as well. But I encourage, in today's market, Zoom calls, groups, meetups, and other things. And I remember being on one that was, for veterans, and people were talking about all their businesses. And I kept thinking, man, this guy on this call, something about him. And we just connected afterwards. And, one thing led to another. And now he's here, moved from California here to Texas. And he's super excited. I'm super excited. And brought one of his teammates, and, they were super successful, sunsetted their company and joined us. And it's been fantastic. So we really, you need to connect. You need to go to join a good mastermind, find like-minded people, but ones who have skills that you don't have.
Yeah, love that. Got to get connected. Got to find those people. And I like how you mentioned, it's like you connected with this guy, and it's like, okay, I need to get to know him better. And then it's like, okay, you need to be a part of our team, right? You were open to that, and I just think like personally, I'm always looking for talent, right? Yeah. It's like I see somebody like you're talking about. It's like, okay, where can I put them in here? Like today, or as quickly as possible, or approach them about that. So appreciate that. Tell us, do you have any predictions, Sam, for the real estate market over the next 6 to 12 months?
The next 6 or 12 months, I think it's going to remain hot. We're still at low interest rates. It's going to take interest rates changing, but as deals get more pricey, it becomes more of an institutional world where they can deal with lower returns, or unless you can syndicate and guarantee your investors, 15 IRR or 12 IRR, it's getting harder to find the true value add projects. And off market my best deals have been on market deals. Our biggest returns have been on-market, LoopNet sourced projects, but we strive wholeheartedly to find off-market projects because I hate sitting there competing with a bunch of people. So you want to get out of the competition game, right? Competition lowers your return. So I think it's going to remain hot, and then it's going to taper off. We know it is. We're just so far up. The concern is going to be is we're all taking on these bridge loans that are set to LIBOR or maybe you can get it set on a 10-year treasury yield or something else like that, depending on what lender you're using. But, once that starts going up, cap rates are going to, follow because you have to be able to, your DSCR has got to be high enough.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And just how you're thinking about the market, I think it's just helpful. Tell us though, how do you prepare for a downturn? You're buying a project. What are a couple of things or anything that you're looking at to say, you know what, if the market does take a dip in whatever way and 3 bowlers go out, how do you weather that storm? How do you know that you're prepared for that?
So I went through the downturn, 2007, 2008. I was flipping homes. Some of those we just turned and kept for years and years till the market returned, and then we sold them and made a great return. But I always, if you're syndicating, always leave a way out to say, hey, investors, year 5 happens to be the lowest point. It says 2009. This is not a good year to sell. We want to extend, a few more years. Can we do that? So you want to provide yourselves as many options as possible. And, the market's at its peak. I know we're going to hold for 5 years, but if we sell today, we're going to get 90% of our 5-year value versus waiting 5 years. So let's sell today and then go back into another project. So we've been doing that. And, because we're not going to be able to create the same value as we just had. And then others was one of the reasons why we were still able to weather the storm is our entry points were always low. So we weren't buying core plus assets. And, if we're still buying things that have meat on the bone, even if it's a hairy deal, sometimes a lot of hair on the deal, we should still be good. So if your target is 20% IRR and then you're down to 15% IRR or 12% IRR, you're great. You just lost half your potential revenue, but guess what? Our potential return, you're still doing okay. If you're sitting at 15, now you're down at 6 to 7, you're probably still okay, but it's just that challenge. So expect potential problems in the marketplace in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and be ready with some cash to go out and buy some stuff.
Awesome. And I meant to ask you, do you all self-manage?
We do. In fact, that's one of the things institutions really liked about us is that we had our own property management company. It's actually a couple of companies. We have brokers that are lined up so we can charge leasing fees and so forth. They have about 30 people on staff. It gets really easy when you're doing large properties because they have on site 4, 5, 6 people on site.
Yeah. I know. I think you've mentioned. Our team did some research about you, and I think you've mentioned. Like you're not going to get rich off property management. And so speak to being vertically integrated like that, why do that? You're not going to get rich off that. I understand many things about it or why you would do that, but I want you to be able to share that with listeners. Like why go to the trouble of having your own property management company if it's not going to be a source really of income, for you or the business?
Yeah, I will say property management is where most of the headaches are, right? It just is. So a couple of reasons why we did it. First off, because we were buying properties and no one else would manage in the beginning, right? So they were really distressed, 20%, 5% occupancy. Property manager doesn't want to manage it. There's no money in there for them. And so now that we have these, 180, 245, these larger 200 plus unit properties, it's easy to find a property manager, but it's also very easy for us to manage it. And so, you're not going to get rich off property management unless you have, 10,000 units or something. But the focus for us is two things. One, we can make changes on a dime. We can change what's happening straight away. We don't have to go through a review process or nothing else. I can just pick up the phone and say, Jesse, can you do this? And you'd be like, yeah, got it. Or he'll say no because of X, Y, Z. And then I can go back to institutional partner and say, hey, that was a great idea that you learned at whatever school you went to, but on the ground, this is what's happening. You always want to trust your guy on the ground. So we can make those changes right away. Same with having our own development team. If we want, prices on this just change, we're going to go and move and buy these because it's less expensive. And then we can do that. Or we don't want to buy that because it's breaking apart when the installers are installing it and they hate it. Let's go back to something that's in the middle ground. We can make those changes right away and we don't have to go through review processes. We can keep our costs as low as possible and then pass that on to our investors because those guys are also making money from owning the properties and from other things. So it just works out better for us, quicker, leaner, faster, more entrepreneurial.
Yeah. The knowledge and the control. Right. Yeah. You have the insight immediately and much more of it. And you have the control to change things, like you said, immediately and do something better. Right. Than what's being done and not have to wait for a review process like you're talking about. And I think it makes a ton of sense. And we've not brought that in-house yet, but we've definitely talked about when and how we would do that. Because we do understand it's not so much about the dollar signs, right, from owning a property management business as much as it is how it affects your real estate business, right? Your inner operations as a whole and the knowledge you have of how you're operating. But I'd love to keep going about some of this stuff, Sam. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But give us a couple of daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve this level of success.
Yeah. So every morning I get up first. I get ready, and the first 30 minutes is study time. Quiet. It's just myself. Sometimes my 4-year-old comes down there at 5:30 in the morning, and will sit right next to me and learn about solar system or something on his iPad. But it's just, it's time to sit, to study, to reflect and think about what I'm doing as a person and so forth and get inspirations. It's amazing how much inspiration you can get about your business from the scriptures, by the way. So I'll just leave that there. And then after that is before I leave the house, I work. So emails and other things, because as soon as I get to my office, day's over. Emails, phone calls, people, doing everything I can to help support the team and the machine. And I prioritize my people over anything else, making sure they have what they need. If they do, then the mission gets accomplished. Sorry to use some military jargon there. So the mission, the man and me, great book, by the way. But, I felt for a very long time that that's the way it needed to be. And we've become successful, I think, because of that. So that's one, daily habits. 2, love your family and prioritize time with them. Because if you're not right with your family, you're not going to be right with your business. And that's going to bleed over. And 3, never forget to be grateful.
Love that. I appreciate you sharing that. And I love hearing that. It's like the small things you do every day, they seem small, but man, they add up to some massive things. I've experienced that personally and very similar to what you've talked about. But tell us how you like to give back.
How do I like to give back? So a few different few different ways. We did adopt kids. I know that's very limited, but in their lives, we've made a significant difference. I know that from where they came. And then setting up my business in a way that we are constantly giving back through the work that we do. We love to hire, if we can find somebody at that property, even if they don't, if it's a small property and they haven't had management experience, we're willing to train them and teach them as long as they do what they're supposed to be doing. And that has worked out more times than not.
Wow.
Surprisingly, given folks an opportunity, there's been some times where people have done really good. And then all of a sudden they fall off the face of the earth, and we get a call and go down to the property and there's doors missing. And you're like, what in the world's happening in this place? And you got to, get things reorganized back on track. But that's part of life. And we are humans, and we want opportunities. So that's other ways that we give back. Personally, we're constantly giving away anything that we've had. We've been blessed with abundance. We try to share as much as we can with as many people as we can. And
it's a mindset, right? It's like, I love that. And that shows from what you've said. And Sam, it's been an honor to get to know you better and have you on the show. I mean, just going from working in Afghanistan, being a 50 cal gunner, to focus on global health, to impact investing, to growing an amazing portfolio and team, and helping so many people. I mean, even the transition from retail investor to institutional money to, so many great points that you've left us with. I know the listeners are encouraged and have learned a lot. I have as well. Grateful to have you on the show. Tell them how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Whitney, for allowing me to be on your show. Definitely an honor for me. Fantastic show. Loved it for a long time, and motivational to myself as well, and inspiring. Appreciate that. We need more people like yourself out there doing it, because, there's some good people in the world, and, we just need to keep doing good things. So how to reach out to me. So sam@wildmountaincapital.com. Anytime, send me a text message on my Alaskan phone number, 907-406-9042. But yeah, sam@wildmountaincapital.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I am terrible social media. So sometimes people post things for me, or every once in a while I'll post something on LinkedIn. But if you message me, I will definitely message you back. And happy to give advice, mentorship, guidance, chatting about shooting things with the guns, and anything else you guys want to talk about.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com, where you can start investing in real estate today.